Hello Year 9, welcome back to your sports science work. This is obviously our first YouTube video, so we'll see how this goes. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Obviously so far what we've covered in terms of your virtual learning at home, we've covered some of the skeletal system, the muscular system. We're now going to be moving on to some of the different subtopics that link to those. And the first topic today hopefully will appear on your screen. And the first topic is going to be the types of movement that can be created. Okay, so this links to the movements that our body can create. They're used obviously in different sports, and the main thing for you guys today is to make sure that we can hopefully remember what these are, and also the name of them and where it might happen in the body. Okay, and then so the first one is extension. So extension is where the angle of a joint. So for instance, my elbow here, when that angle of a joint increases. Okay, so extension happens when the angle of a joint increases. The opposite to that is flexion. So when muscles flex, or your arm flexes, that's when they decrease in terms of the angle at the joint. So remember, extension, the joint increases in terms of its angle. Flexion, the joint decreases in terms of its angle. Okay, your next one is circumduction. So circumduction. So circumduction is where the end of a limb will move in a circle. So if you imagine a cricket bowl where the action is actually fully circumducting around, okay, that is circumduction. That is an easy example for you guys to remember for circumduction, to cricket bowling. Your next one, abduction. You've got abduction and adduction. Easy way to remember them: if something is taken away, it's abducted. Okay, so abduction, where if we imagine like my zip is here, you've got the midline of the body. If something's taken away from the midline of the body, it's abducted. Okay, so my arm that's abduction happening at my arm. As I bring it back towards the center, the midline of my body, that's adduction. Okay, so far we've got extension, angle at the joint increasing. Flexion, the angle decreasing. We've got circumduction, okay, you've got abduction, and you've got adduction. Okay, and your final one is rotation. So that is when the limb is turning towards the midline of the body. So an easy way to remember that is table tennis, okay, or tennis, when rotating your wrist. So you're rotating something. Right, so alongside the types of movement that can happen, okay, we also have to learn about the synovial joints. So synovial joints are where bones join together, and where the end of the two bones meet, there's a synovial capsule. Okay, it's a cavity. That cavity is filled with liquid, and that liquid is there to allow the bones and the joint to actually create movement, to allow the joint to move freely. Okay, we have 6 different types of synovial joints in our skeleton, and the aim for you guys is to learn what their names are, okay, where they are, and what sort of movement they can actually create. See, you've got 3 things to remember. So, first type of joint, you'll see them on your screen. The first type of joint is a ball and socket joint. Okay, so your ball and socket joint provides 360 degrees worth of motion, and it can happen at your hip or your shoulder. Okay, so your hip and your shoulder joints are those ball and socket joints. Your next one is the hinge joint. So a hinge joint could be at your elbow or your knee. Okay, they're the best examples, they're the easiest examples to remember. And it provides movement like a door in one plane. It can go forwards or backwards. Okay. Next one, gliding joint. So gliding joints provide limited movement in all directions. Okay. The easiest way to remember this is think about your vertebrae, so your spine. It provides movement in all directions, but the movement is extremely limited. Next one is your pivot joint. So your pivot joint provides rotation, but that is the only movement it can provide. A good one to remember for the pivot joint is it happens in your neck. So if you're scanning in football or netball or basketball, so before you receive the ball, you might scan so that you can check to see where the opponents are. So your saddle joint. So your saddle joint allows movement in 2 planes. Okay, it can go forwards and backwards, or it can go side to side. So forwards and backwards is one plane, side to side is a second plane. So when you're thinking of a saddle joint, think of your thumb. Your thumb can go forwards, backwards, and go side to side. The final one, so the sixth type of movement, or sixth type of joint, sorry, is your condyloid. Okay, so again, movement in two planes, and we're thinking about the top of the wrist. So where the top of your wrist meets your forearm, okay, so right at the top of your wrist, that would be condyloid joints there. Now that you guys know the name of the joints and you've got some of their locations on your screen, the main thing for you is, whilst you're writing these down, can you think of a sporting movement that you can link to each joint? Okay, so can you actually think of a sporting movement that you can link to a joint? So I'll give you one to start off with, and it would be kicking a football. So kicking a football, that would link to using a hinge joint. Okay, why? Because you have to flex your knee, so you have to close the angle at your knee to pull your leg back, and then extend your leg to obviously kick through. The joint that's utilising is your knee joint, and that is a hinge joint. Give it a go. Right, our third subtopic that we're going to be covering today is connective tissue. So connective tissue covers three different topics, or subtopics. So we've got ligaments, tendons, and cartilage. Okay, so these will be appearing on your screen so you can see them as well with diagrams. So bones are joined together by ligaments. Ligaments are extremely strong. The next one you've got, bones and muscles are joined together by tendons. So bones and muscles are joined together by tendons. A really easy one to remember is your Achilles tendon. So your Achilles tendon down at the back of your heel links the base of your ankle to your calf, or your gastrocnemius, for those that can remember the actual name. And the final piece of connective tissue is your cartilage. So cartilage is found at the end of bones, and it helps to prevent friction and act as shock absorbers. So when you're trying to remember these different things, these different connective tissues, the ways that I try to use to just give me a bit of an idea would be ligaments. Ligaments link, so use the L, they link bones together. So ligaments link bones together. Tendons attach muscles to bones. So tendons attach muscles to bones. And remember, the easy one we said about trying to remember that would be the Achilles tendon, because it joins your gastrocnemius to the base of your heel. Okay, and cartilage is there for protection. It's your shock absorber. Okay, and that's found in between bones to stop them rubbing. Right, our fourth and final subtopic, just for today's lesson, your fourth and final subtopic is linked to the functions of the musculoskeletal system. So this is going to finish the topic that we've covered so far. Okay, so we've covered the muscular system, we've covered the skeletal system, and we're now thinking about the functions of the two systems joined together. So the first function of the musculoskeletal system will be on your screen, and it is movement. Okay, so movement is a key function of the musculoskeletal system. Okay, so where bones meet, joints are formed, and these can act as levers, so that because joints are formed, it allows movement to be created. It allows you to move parts of your body. Okay, tendons, remember what tendons do? Tendons attach the bones to muscles to allow movement to occur. So as a muscle contracts, it is automatically attached to a bone, so when a muscle contracts, it will cause movement, and it will allow movement to obviously occur. Support, when you're thinking about trying to include your description for support, let's think about which joints in particular provide vital support. So if we were walking, which joints provide vital support for us when we're walking? If we were in a sprinting race, so if we're in a 100-metre race, which joints provide the support that Usain Bolt or... Thirdly, protection. So protection is the third function of the musculoskeletal system. Okay, bones are very tough and they protect delicate organs such as the brain, heart and lungs. Okay, can you describe which bones in particular, which parts of the skeleton actually help to protect those vital organs? So your fourth function of the musculoskeletal system is blood production. So red blood cells. Red blood cells are used to carry oxygen, and white blood cells are used to protect against infection. So they help to create antibodies. Okay, the important thing for you guys to remember is that these are actually created inside the bone marrow, so inside the actual bones themselves of some of our bones. So the musculoskeletal system, one of its really important functions is that blood cell production can happen inside our bones. Right, this brings us to the end of our first video. There will be a quizzes link on Show My Homework for you guys to give it a go. These questions in the quizzes will link to both the muscular system and the skeletal system. Okay, so we will be covering all of the musculoskeletal system in this quizzes. I'm going to limit you guys to 2 attempts each. 2 attempts each to try and get your best score. To do this, you guys will have to sign up for quizzes using your email address. Okay, if you don't have an email address yourself, hopefully if you ask your parents or your guardians, you can use theirs to sign up for, and it's just for logging in. Okay, so 2 attempts at quizzes. There will be quite a few questions. There will be different diagrams on there for you to label. You can use this PowerPoint to help you obviously use it to revise. Give it a go. Let's see who comes out on top.